Nick, for the past few weeks or even months, Houthi rebels in Yemen have been intercepting cargo containers that they say are affiliated with Israel in one way or another. And it seems to be that they are responding to the situation, the war in Israel, between Israel and Hamas. And ultimately, the United States got involved, in different countries got involved in Operation Prosperity Guardian, which in its name is, trying to protect the commerce that goes through the Red Sea. And there's so much money being lost with different countries that traverse that area. And I think what the Houthi rebels are doing is trying to hit everyone in their pocketbooks to perhaps affect some change in Israel. I want to kind of just start from the basics. Who are the Houthi rebels?
The Houthi rebels are a militia movement that has been fighting a civil war in Yemen now for the past several years. The civil war kicked off back in September of 2014 when the Houthis captured the Yemeni capital of Sana'a. Since then, they have fought a bloody conflict against all different sorts of factions throughout Yemen. And throughout this conflict, they have received all sorts of arms, financing, and military advice from Iran. Iran has proven to be one of the most prominent military backers to the Houthis and is a large reason why the Houthis have the military capabilities to currently threaten commercial traffic around the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait.
And that's because they're being financed and supplied by Iran, which is essentially the financier of many of their operations, right? So weapons, vehicles, and that kind of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's important not to overstate the degree to which Iran directly controls the Houthis. The Houthis are part of what the Iranians will often describe as their axis of resistance. This term, axis of resistance, is the language the Iranian leaders use to describe their unconventional alliance structure throughout the Middle East. And it's comprised of various state, semi-state, and non-state actors. So some of these groups include Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Assad regime in Syria, myriad other militia groups running around in Iraq, Syria, the Palestinian territories. And of course, the Houthis are part of this axis of resistance. Now, the Houthis are not a direct proxy in the same way that you might think of the Iranian relationship between Iran and Hezbollah. But nevertheless, the Houthis have demonstrated time and time again that they are, at least to some degree, receptive to Iranian influence. And that influence is in part bought by the provision of Iranian arms and financial support to the Houthi movement.
And Nick, when it comes to Iran, you hear their name pop up all over the place, right? In Lebanon, in Gaza, in Yemen, several other places. Their name's always there. We rarely, if ever, really see Iranian troops really anywhere. It seems like they have, their own influence throughout the region. But what's the ultimate goal there?
Yeah, that actually speaks, I think, to the strategic rationale that motivates Iran to build out its axis of resistance throughout the Middle East. One of the sort of defining traits of the axis of resistance is that many of its members subscribe to a very similar set of ideological principles, namely anti-United States and anti-Israel sentiments. These are some of the core drivers of the cooperation across all sorts of different members of the axis of resistance in the Middle East. This ideological unity creates this kind of strategic alignment. And so that is some of the common ground that has allowed the Iranian partnership with the Houthi movement to develop. So, as I said, the purpose of this unconventional alliance is to help Iran attain what are essentially its grand strategic objectives within the Middle East. These objectives are attaining regional hegemony, destroying the Israeli state, and ultimately expelling American influence from the Middle East. And that latter objective is primarily taking the form of Iran currently working to expel U.S. forces currently deployed in Iraq and Syria. The axis of resistance is now demonstrating its capability and readiness to imperil global traffic that is flowing through these absolutely crucial arteries for global trade.
Would the Houthi rebels themselves, with what they're doing, be able to influence policy, American policy, Israeli policy in the Middle East, influence the outcome of the war or the way it's being carried out?
The Houthis are framing this as directly related to the Israel-Hamas war, but the end of this war is not going to change the fact that Iran and the Houthis remain committed to trying to manipulate their proximity to these strategic choke points in order to achieve their international objectives, right? These are key pressure points that they have regularly leveraged historically, and they will almost certainly continue to do so in the future, regardless of what is going on between Israel and the Gaza Strip.
So, Nick, if there is a resolution to the war in Israel that would satisfy, you know, the average Houthi rebel and their command, would the threat to shipping stop?
No, unfortunately, it would not. Iran and its axis of resistance, that includes the Houthis, have threatened and attacked international shipping around the Middle East for many years now. This is a phenomenon that well precedes the war that's presently occurring between Israel and Hamas, and we therefore should not operate under any expectation that a resolution to the war is going to fix the problems that we face outside of Israel and the Gaza Strip. The Houthis remain committed to trying to demonstrate to the Middle East and the world the degree to which they are prepared and able to threaten and attack international shipping. And they're going to continually use their capabilities and proximity to the Red Sea as a means of pressure against their adversaries throughout the world.
All right, Nick Carl from the American Enterprise Institute. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.